Hey there. Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Death Session 40. We're at 40. We are at 40. Pretty cool. Thanks for that. Uh, and by thanks, I want to mention that where I'm at today and where I want to go, and I think I've been sort of ramping up, but if I'm not enthusiastic, then how would I expect anyone watching to be enthusiastic? And that's why my energy levels have been um, something that I was, making sure I noticed and was curious whether I was, um, in a nice place to start. And sometimes you have to modulate because you have to be relaxed to comfort the people watching, but you also have to be amped to be interesting and to channel good energy. If we're gonna get that touchy feely about it, and I'll be honest with you. Um, as I am healing and able to be more active, this is now something I have to force myself to sit down and do because I can get up and walk now. And so the oasis before was I have an appointment to keep. I can hobble from the couch to the desk and I can still communicate and still do this thing called the desk session. And that was great. And I am grateful for that. Now, I have to see how it fits into the real world. Luckily, and intrinsically, maybe or organically, it started before I got hurt. And I guess the cool part of it all is that I've tested whether I'd maintain in good times and bad, and that's sort of what I want to impart. And as I approach, I think I said last week that the new date of a very intimate read for the show is the 21st, so 2 Saturdays from when I'm taping this. And I have been full of that, and I have been going through all the emotions. Less fearful about how it's going to be to read it because I've been almost every day, I would say every day, every other day, I am reading the text. I have cut so much. I've cut 3 entire pages out, which is a lot because it's a lot of text. So 3 pages out of a 110 page screenplay would probably be a minor cut, but in something as wordy as this, 3 whole pages is a lot because it's just and I am getting to the point where I think it's going to it's going to be about 55 minutes, which would be the sweet spot for it, I think. Moving forward, thinking about how to present it, um, I'm wondering if, like a singer songwriter, doing 3 or 4 songs before to sort of bring the focus to the crowd, and then some kind of, ladies and gentlemen, the show, i.e., using some of that stand up stage craft with the opener, the host, the opener, and the headliner, so that it isn't a long slog of a 2 hour show or an hour and a half show that is me up there for an hour and a half being too long. It would be some value added presentation and then a night out where the one man show is the closing quote unquote act or the headlining event. I think a lot of the um, right now the Fringe Festival is going on in Los Angeles. I think that mirrors the one that goes on in New York and in Scotland, and is on the horizon in a year's time to be something that I'd like to be at least in the ballpark of submitting for. And by then, who knows what the shape of the show could be. I also and so what I was mentioning before about energy and finding time to do this, I was able to go around a second block, not twice, but around a further uh, perimeter, and um, it's getting there. It's getting. I mean, I'm still a little wobbly. Both feet hurt now. I don't know what's going on, and I'm still a little bit trepidatious about certain things, but I'm getting to the point where I can break a sweat a little bit, and I'm relieved by that. But like I said, today I am feeling a little bit rambunctious, and so I have to sit down and do this. And A lot of people would say if you don't love it every minute of it, then it's a good indicator. Maybe, I don't know. Um, I think last week I talked about dread coming up in the emotions around things that I am excited to do, and where did that come from? And like I said, I think it was a rehearsed feeling of somewhere getting a wire crossed or a message crossed that shining, being uh, noticed, was irksome, or that I should mind my business and keep my head down, or I don't want to lay it all at the feet of that, but I do understand now that when the dread came up, it's completely the opposite reaction. And I think that's people who are afraid of, I guess, maybe afraid of success, is like, God, that's equally as scary as the status quo. Do you know what I mean? And I guess aside from being in a SHU program, SHU, segregated housing unit, I think people can almost get used to anything. And you've heard about institutionalized prisoners who just feel ultimately what's that word? They violate their probation to go back. I guess we're all kind of referring to Shawshank Redemption, but where people can't make it on the outside because they've been so quote unquote institutionalized. And I think that can almost be where you can get when you're in a rut. And I can cop to having been stuck and in a rut. And while there is some grace and gratitude for having a job that they like you and you've made a living and you shouldn't be mad about that, sometimes it's not that gig, it's the mental state and not having it in a proper perspective. And so I'll just say I've known times where I've been in a rut and I currently feel like I'm not. And so for that, it's progress. And I can't really point to events other than the fact that I know I am approaching now. I think that dread has been I've sort of wrung out the wet towel, and I've gotten that all out, and now I have a nice fluffy towel, and it's not going to absorb anything but the sweat of the joy of working in this new way. Some other things that are coming up is alternating, or maybe not so alternating, is getting so familiar with the material that I am starting to wonder if it's boring, whereas it's because it's not new to me, and would it be new to a virgin ears and eyes of the audience? And is that an indicator of it being like a basic bitch piece, or a banal thing, or that the metaphors aren't brilliant enough? A lot of the self-doubt of the piece is there, not so much in the words. I am fairly confident that the words I've strung together are pretty strong, and that my delivery system, the wrapper of the tobacco is the cigarette being the words, and the message being the tobacco, and the tobacco being the message, and the cigarette being the rolling paper and the filter and the box. I'm okay with how the words are. I just, there is comfort, I think, depending on what. I think that is a trap also, is to stifle or to prejudge yourself, because the fantastical isn't part of my story. I don't have, I wasn't the world's youngest plate spinner, or the world's fastest speaker or I didn't win a spelling bee national championships. And those aren't even that fantastical, but with the advent of AI, which is definitely perplexing me and frightening me, but more the advent of entertainment, having to be profitable in a certain way, where the banal is now completely left out of the equation. And so it's got to be high concept action movies, IP, things like that, that you start to think, man, am I just like writing about thoughts and feelings? And essentially that's what it is. And technologically, there's nothing more basic than one person on the stage with no amplification, unless I get one of those Janet Jackson Backstreet Boys mics, which I think I kind of want to do, but I don't know when I can have that. Backstreet's back. All right. I mean, I definitely want to think about one of those, and like, the flesh color thing that they wear, or there's sometimes it's like right here, and then you can do like your gesturing without, you know, the hands-free mic, I think, or the, what have you done for me lately? Anyway, the idea of how I'm going to present it is going to be low fidelity, lo-fi, low tech, and that, I think, is going to have to be the secret sauce of it. And it's been a minute since I've been, even if it's a room, and I am shooting for the maximum 8 people, maybe 5, and so I want it to be that intimate, because that's going to be a big indicator about whether I can deliver this enough. Can I hold that attention? Can I commune in the, not in the, commune with the people in the room? And inevitably, that's why stand up and performance works live versus seeing films, and or filmed theatrical experiences are, there is, I don't know what percentage, but it might be as much as 50% is lost in the idea that you weren't in that room at that time. I mean, just, the Springsteen had those in the 80s, it was Under the Christmas Tree, man. I had to have it. I got it on cassette. Was the live album was like 4 cassettes, 4 albums, I guess 4 CDs now. But the live one, and that had that really awesome acoustic Thunder Road where he's just him and the piano. You would have rather have been at the concert and then had the totem, or the the recollection of it as, I was at that show, bro, and it was so amazing. You still would rather be at the show. But there is some projecting and some kind of imagination and travel that you can get a lot out of hearing a live performance. But meaning, it's going to have to be a thing I get used to. And I think the really good theater, and I will have to find those moments, is when you and what theatricality, as I understand it, is these sort of symbolic, sudden, something with a light cue, with a blackout, there is some stagecraft that is theatrical, and I hope to be able to find some of that. I won't really be able to find it as I read. And now my big question is, do I read it out of a binder? Do I hold the pages and fling the empties, or the red pages? Or I'm leaning more into, I'm going to read it off my laptop. And I hope that doesn't serve as an impediment also, because I'm getting so familiar with the raising my eyes out of the laptop that I think I'm not gonna be memorized, but I'm going to be familiar enough that you'll see my eyes, and it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird, and it's gonna be scary, and that's what I'm excited about. I just hope I can weather the storm of doubt with the material. Not so much doubt, but just, oh man, some of the people I've invited me have heard this stuff before, and ultimately you want soft fall as far as that first reaction to it, because you don't want a focus group just teeing off on you through through a two-way mirror. But you do need to get some feedback, and that was why a lot of times when I did stand up, I didn't want people I knew out there. I would always I'd love those complete nude audiences, because it was just there's just a lot tied in when people care, when they're rooting for you, when they're hoping you don't flop. If it's just the crowd, you're supposed to go up there and deliver. And so there is this weird tendril, like a weird emotional umbilical cord that you need to cut, and you need to face crowds that don't know you. That's a better test of whether this stuff is stage worthy or not. And so that's the ultimate test after this first little read. But there'll be plenty of time for that, and there'll be plenty of audiences, and I have to know that and be ready for that. But in terms of energy this week and keeping keeping momentum, I have purpose, and that has put a little pep in my step. I have plenty to do. I have physical therapy. I have um, the the luck of having several auditions and an actual on camera one, which was something I can't discuss. I had to sign an NDA. It's it's amazing. You need to sign an NDA before they will release pages. Uh, Before they'll release a page with one word. Let's say that. That's about all I can say. Is I I couldn't even figure out what to wear. I guess I could because of what the character description was, because it's one of those parts where it's not a person, it's a job. But and someday I'd love to discuss this with other actors or quote unquote casting directors and experts about how do you infuse life with a one word script and a character. And I think I'll just take you through the process of, you still have to do beginning, middle, and end. I think I encourage people, because there was an entrance and, I used the entire frame. I walked in, here's a trick. You can walk in toward the camera, or you can walk in and kind of veer into the camera, and that's kind of what I chose to do, so that you saw a blank screen for a millisecond, and then you see me come in, and and that sets the scene. That maybe that's how they'll probably shoot it handheld and follow you into whatever the room or whatever. But when you don't have that and you got the tripod, you have to create motion by walking into frame and then addressing the camera, not with your eye contact, but with, okay, here's kind of how I see the scene. You present it, you say your one line, I repeat my one line, because I am a lot more interested in heavy dialogue than just being cast for walking around a room. And then you added a tag that may or may not have been in the script, and I don't know if that's taking too much of a liberty, but you have to do something and crack yourself up, is how I looked at this. I just wanted to crack myself up with this, and I did, and I had a good time. And I'm getting better with all these auditions. I did one take. I did more takes on the slate saying my name, height, and location. I did more takes of that because I was trying to get the thing. But as far as that one, like, what the hell could you belabor over that? And I think that's a lesson even for longer things. You do your desk work, you do your lines, you highlight the damn thing, you memorize it, or if you can't memorize one word, you got a brain issue, and your issues are larger than that. But it was fun. It was fun, and now it's like, okay, you're supposed to send it off and forget it. But the idea is to make a fan out of the casting director, and it is luckily a casting director for very big projects, the kind of projects that need an NDA. That's all I'll say, and I won't belabor that. But they have brought me in before for big stuff, and that means we're able to be seen for that one, and that's a get, and that's a good thing. And the agony of this business, and I talk about it in the show, some of the agonies of this business is that I don't say that to humble brag. I don't have the job. I'm sure 1,000 people said their line. I almost said I don't even want to say the word that they had in the audition with. I almost said it, but everybody else is saying the like everybody. She got the person, she or he, the casting director, is gonna see 500 of those. I don't, or maybe they'll narrow down from 500 to 1,000 submissions, and then the amount of people is probably around 30. I would say 35 self tapes saying duh. So I can't guess, but I would imagine it's in the 30 to 50, 25 to 35 would be the amount of people to be seen. So that's why the headshot is the first point of entry. The submission is the second. The third is to get the appointment, and then you get to do the audition. And so the people, so you do have to forget it. But if you found a way to enliven, one word, didn't slough it off, I think everybody's trying to be cool and everybody's trying to act like they don't give a shit. But how the fuck is that possible? How can you act like you don't give a shit when you're the one holding a camera in selfie mode? You give such a shit. So I'm done with trying to be cool, and I'm done with trying to, yes, you don't want to be desperate. I want this job so bad, but you want to be happy to submit. You want to be happy to have fucked around and figured out the approach to making this thing not boring, to give them 20 seconds of you walking in and doing what you got to do. I went to I needed a particular article of clothing to bring my idea for the costume together. So it was a fun day of doing the thing I want to do, and the beauty of being, on the mend, and now I can walk without a boot and do my scene. This is the dream. This is the dream. To have auditions, to have a show that you're working on, to have that all be holistic in your living, and somehow you still have bread on the table. And I'm able to do that, and I want to do it more. And I'm trying to not, think of this time as a furlough, and think of it more as a test run for how I would order my life if money weren't an object. And I think that's a good exercise that I've been blessed to get a glimpse at. But I have been busy. I've been busier now because I have more energy because of not being degenerated or decommissioned or debilitated by physical labor. I've been able to crank a little bit, and it feels good. And you just in time for a contraction in the industry. And that is some of the stuff that I do have a little bit too much time to freak out about. Sorry, I hate to do that, but I was starting to rasp. But I got to put that out of my mind, and I have to remember that if I had a day full of exercise, sunlight, talking to my girl, some music, food, and some work, but my creative work, being at the desk, having a desk session, having a read through of my script, editing it, trying to streamline it so that it's if I want everybody to say, man, it's over already? Wow, that went by so fast. That's going to be the best I can get. Where I could have, that's the compliment you want after one of these things, is I could have listened to a lot more. And so, that is brevity is the soul of wit, right? And that's what I'm going for. I don't practice that on the desk session when I go for 35 minutes, but brevity is the soul of wit. And again, I am also practicing the idea of containing energy outwardly, and holding space. And I don't know, obviously I can tell by the numbers, I don't have great numbers, but I can't tell if, I think things get watched 30% if you're lucky. Some of these reels, like I clip this out and I try to every week. It's annoying, but I have to find a part that's like quippy in 30 seconds, 30 to a minute, whatever, for a reel. And then you find out that, I'm getting like 6 seconds out of something that's a minute. So, and I am learning to, I don't know, start with the joke or make a face or make a noise. I don't know how it works algorithmically, but I do try to find that quippiest, like sort of the sharpest little minute, teaser, like a trailer. I don't know. I'd have to look at it. Do they hold back? on A Few Good Men? Is You Can't Handle the Truth? Is that in the trailer? I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. But, essentially I'm doing a trailer for the long version of this, and I try to find, and some weeks there isn't because I happen to think, I don't know if this is an excuse for lack of short form success. I don't know. And that's the thing with my show. I do tend to have things that are payoff in longer form. I wasn't a one liner comic, I was a storyteller. So I definitely have to, it's harder to pull sound bites out of my thinking. It's probably harder to find sound bites in this. And always think theatrically, and I always think through that lens of beginning, middle, and end. And I also like to land the plane with a thematic callback, as it were. And I don't know when to wrap it up sometimes because I am not right now as I am meandering. I don't know what that dismount, that opening sentiment was, probably because I've worn out my own welcome in my own space and time. But the upshot of this week is not that I was dreading it, which I'm going to try to eliminate that word or notice it when that feeling comes up and maybe understand it differently. But I have fit this in when there is plenty else to do, plenty else I'd want to do, and maybe that's an embarrassment of riches. And maybe that's the way to start looking at my life and flip it completely. That it's been an embarrassment of riches that I have been put here to be given. The particular set of circumstances I've been given were not troubles. They were luck outs. And if I can really say that and mean it, and maybe I have a ways to do that. Maybe I'm faking it right now until I make it, but I have to believe that sort of outwardly expressing that. And again, I want to save some of the, even though the show might not be seen by everyone, I do want to save some of the plot, if there is a plot. But all I'll say is there are plenty of people in our pasts, in our lives, our loved ones that have moved on, that they would love a day like I had today. And a big part of that is just sitting here and talking to y'all. But not to get personal, but there are enough people who've moved on or who are struggling mightily in our particular circle of friends and family, and who have suffered and who have departed, that to be anything other than grateful, to be anything other than pleasantly perturbed that you got a lot to do is the worst it can get. And that there are a lot of people that would trade places. And I struggle with saying things like that because I don't want to rub in my good fortune. But I have felt unlucky in times of bounty, and that's a bigger sin than to be grateful and to say thank you and to project that you are happy with the way it's going. I do think that is the better model, and that's what I'm going to work on. And I will continue to keep this rolling, and I will continue past 40. We're just getting started, baby. It's your life starts after 40. And this, vlog slash pod will be life begins forward after 40. Let's hope that adage can be put into play. And I'll keep you posted on how it goes. And thanks for watching Session40 with me. Peace.